You mentioned at some point warriors, and of course your book is called The Rock Warrior Way. Being warriors, does it mean that we are at war with something?
It sounds a little scary, right?
Yes, it
well, I think it's really important to dig into this. I'm glad you brought that up. When we think about warriors or soldiers in our countries, they have a job to do, right? They're protectors of our nation, of our society. And so they go to war, to fight, to neutralize the enemy, so to speak, to protect the rest of the nation. So there's an important thing to realize in that, and that is that warriors move toward the threat or the stressor.
They don't run.
They don't run away, which the people, the rest of the people like us, we're pulling back and saying, okay, you go out there, you protect us, So that's how it works, in a nation or a society. But now we can take the same mindset that a warrior has to our own personal journeys. So we can say, okay, when I have stress in my life, I can go to war, so to speak, to fight with it. But the way we fight is not aggressively pushing down the stress. We work in a very complementary way with the stress.
We are diplomats.
In a way, right? Because just like we were talking about, when we're in our comfort zone, we go to war by going in this direction, right? Into the stress.
Yeah.
But we engage the stress a little at a time, and then we're present for it, work with it, so that we can convert that stress to comfort. So in a way, that's kind of diplomatic, right? We're finding a way to work with, and some specific examples would be a negative thought comes up. Oh, you can't do that, you're too pumped. So fighting it, like the traditional way of fighting it would be like, I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Go away. Repress it, push it down. But a more diplomatic way of working with it, collaborative way would be, oh, you think that I don't have enough strength to engage it. That must be something important that I need to pay attention to, because you want to keep me safe. And it's important to keep me safe.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
And I'm just going to take a little step and engage it to see if you're right, to see if that concern is legitimate. So we don't take a big step. We take a little step to have an experience so that we can help. Two things happen there. One is we meet the need of that negative thought. It wants to keep us safe. And at the same time, we meet the need for learning, for growing, by engaging
going a bit further.
Yeah, but in a small step, and so it is, being a warrior is simply a courageous way to engage our difficult life journey. But how we engage it is critical.
This is an art, no?
It is an art, because really what we're developing is our ability to relax into the present stress and be there without rushing and running away from it. That's courageous, and so we can do that more with practice if we're engaging it in how we've talked about it, so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Climbing. We've spoke of climbing and practically this is what we do. And if we climb in a gym, then maybe it's a shorter effort. If we climb outside, sport climbing is another type of effort. But there are those forms of climbing which are endurance sports. When we multi-pitch, when we go on big walls, when we have all sorts of long time trips into the mountains. And many of them are tiring. They are tiring for the body and they are tiring for the mind. And yeah, we know that when our body gets tired, we give it energy, we give it food, we give it sleep, a bit of rest. But what do we do with our mind when it gets tired of this war?
Yeah. So a few things come to mind, you know, for that. And one thing is what we touched on a little bit earlier about cycles. Okay. So I think in today's society, we can be out of balance between rest and activity. You know, even in our climbing, we go, and we don't take enough time to stop and rest.
Yeah.
You know, so we have this saying that we teach in our clinics. It's when you rest, rest. When you climb, climb. You know, meaning that these are two very different parts of our lives and two different parts of climbing. And we tend not to do them that way. You know, if we're resting,
we mix them.
We mix them, yeah. So when we're stopped, you know, we're not fully resting. You know, we're worrying about the climbing. We're sort of edging into it. And when we're climbing, we're sort of hesitating. We're not sure if we're rested enough. And so it's important to commit to one or the other, you know, so that we can commit our full attention to resting when it's time to stop, and make sure we do it completely, you know, or as completely as we can, or as necessary for the situation. But when we go, we really go, you know, we're focusing on engagement, you know, fully wanting to be there. Action, yes. And so we have these two important parts of the cycle, and it basically comes down to energy, right? Recovering energy and applying energy. And each of us have different levels based on, you know, our training and our experience. So what becomes very important is to know, when have I stayed here long enough? When have I been engaged in activity long enough? When is it time to cycle into activity? When is it time to cycle into resting? And so that's kind of personal to each of us. So we tune into our own internal needs for when to cycle from one to the other.
So it's like yin and yang. They are complementary. They don't exist one with the other, without the other.
Yes, it's like it's not a choice. They're both necessary, and they complement each other. It's just like the breathing cycle. You know, when you inhaling is important, exhaling is important, and then when you inhale, the higher you get into the inhale, the more important it becomes to start exhaling. Like it's like you get to the point where you can't inhale
anymore. Right? Yeah.
And so we cycle in a timely manner between the inhale-exhale cycle by paying attention to, when am I full of air and when am I empty?
Out of air.
Out of air, right? So this is like, you know, we can learn so much from breathing to apply to the rest of our climbing in our lives.
Yet we give so little importance to breathing.
Right. But yeah, this understanding about, we want to, do longer endurance routes, bigger mountains that's going to require more endurance. We learn more about, cycling between recovering energy and applying energy. And then we take an incremental approach. We don't just go to Mount Everest, we climb the local mountains.
Yeah,
we climb the
ideally.
mountains here in our local area. And so we take an incremental approach, to get to higher and higher cliffs and mountains.
So that would ensure better mental fitness.
Yes, because we still come back to the same concept. If we take too big of a step, we're going to get into the panic zone, and we're not going to be able to be present for that experience. We just want to be finished. And so we're actually, we're damaging our mental fitness by doing that. We're damaging it. So if we want to develop our mental fitness, we must do it incrementally.
So incremental is really important in whatever we do, either physical or mental.
I would agree. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes, like we talked earlier, all of a sudden you're in a situation that wasn't incremental.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens, and largely because we haven't understood that the importance of doing the incremental steps.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have to work with that as best we can. And sometimes that might mean finding a way to escape it. And other times, I think we've all been where the most reasonable option seemed to maybe climb another meter or so, where we're through it. But those are difficult decisions, and I don't have a definitive answer for that.
Yeah, practically it's sometimes we have an opportunity which we don't want to miss, even if it's a bit too big for us. We choose to go into that and see if we can face it and whatever we learn from it. It's not that we planned for it, but it happens and we take it.
Yeah, we don't have much of a choice at that point, but then, we need to do our best to, I think it can be important to see, is it possible first to climb out of it, to go down? I think that should be the first consideration. And then if that just seems impossible, then, what else? You only need to look at what else you can do.
Yeah, sometimes we just go down. You need to go up.
Yeah.
So mental fitness, body, mind, organism. But we don't know what, as you said earlier, society wins. Today we are not connecting our mind with our body, usually. Most of the times we don't do it. So that would make this organism, body, mind, organism, like a strange and exotic creature, something that we haven't seen before. So how do we make room for it in our lives? How do we do it a friend? How do we transform it from a creature that we haven't known to a friend?
Yeah, we live with this exotic creature that we're not familiar with, right? And how do we befriend it and get to know it? And so I think it's largely through specific body awareness drills. Okay, so in the training that we do, we have our athletes every morning do a short body awareness drill, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And it could be yoga or Tai Chi or some kind of movement that's not intense. I've adapted some different movements from Tai Chi, but essentially the body awareness drill goes between just simply standing and then going into a movement pattern, like stepping and then like maybe moving the arms in a circular motion. And we do it with eyes closed.
Why? Why eye closed?
Because the eyes are very powerful in directing attention. And with my eyes open, it distracts my attention into the external environment, and I lose awareness of what's going on inside me. Mm-hmm. So when I close my eyes, I can again get more in tune with my body proprioception. So I can feel like what parts of my body are expanding and contracting when I breathe. Am I holding tension, or am I relaxing to hold my body in proper posture? And then if I go through a movement, I can pay attention to the orientation of my hips with my shoulders and my head. And am I leaning a little bit, or am I upright? And so in the body awareness drill, we really look into what are each of the different body parts doing to make that movement. In other words, the feet have a different responsibility than the legs and the hips and the upper body and the head and the eyes. You know, and so we work with it. It gives us an opportunity to get more familiar with the body, which you could say is a somatic way of focusing attention, a body-oriented way of focusing attention. But we can also work with attention so we can get more command over it. And we do that by narrowing attention to something specific and then expanding it to the whole body. Mm-hmm. So we can go through the movement and, you know, with our eyes closed,
then stop.
And we can narrow attention to the sensations of our feet on the floor. Mm. What's going on there? And then we can do the same with the legs and the hips and the upper body and the head and eyes. And then we can understand more completely each of the parts of the body's role, its responsibility for creating the movement. So, for example, the feet are responsible for grounding, for foundation.
Yeah.
The legs are responsible for power, for pushing and pulling the body in the movement. The hips are responsible for leading the movement, like moving from our center, so that we can move as one integrated body-mind unit. And the upper body expresses the movement. You know, from the solid foundation of my lower body, just like when I'm climbing, my legs and feet are fixed. You know, have a stable base from my hips down. Now I can work on expressing the movement that needs to happen in the climb. And the head and eyes kind of They direct my movement and my attention. So the body awareness drill helps us turn this exotic stranger, you know, into a familiar friend that we can. You know, we're having experiences again, right, for understanding what is actually going on, you know, in the different parts of the body, so that we can be more familiar with it when we're applying it in our climbing.
By the way of drills, and going back a bit to falling, movement and falling, what would be 3 drills to learn how to fall properly?
3 drills, I can answer it 2 different ways, okay? One would be to make sure that the 3 drills are incremental. So the first drill would be short top rope falls, like let's say 1 meter or less on the top rope.
Mm.
The second drill would be progressively longer top rope falls. And then the third drill would be lead falls, but starting right by, the bolt, by the clip. So it might be like right here by my chest or my waist. And the belayer has just normal slack. And so I fall right there. And then one step above that. So those would be three important incremental ways of practicing falling. Three drills for how you practice it would be paying attention to your breathing, and then your eyes, and then your body, and then your proper body positioning. So we can work with the breathing first. We usually work with the breath first, and we do because the breathing helps convert the stress to comfort. We talked about comfort zone. We get into the stress. We're learning is converting that stress to comfort. So we begin with breathing. Okay.
Practically, we get used to the idea. By breathing, we get used to the idea of what is going to happen.
Sort of. We experience that we can be relaxed during the fall with the exhale. Well, we use the exhale, actually. I didn't say that a moment ago. We all the way through the fall.
Okay.
So this is important because the exhale stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system.
Whereas calm down?
To calm down. Whereas the inhale stimulates the sympathetic nervous system for action. Okay? So when we want to convert that stress to comfort, we use the exhale, the parasympathetic, to create more relaxation and comfort. Okay. So, but it helps us, doing that helps us know what's going to happen, but that is like a reflection after it happens. During, we need to make sure that we're focusing attention in the body, okay, on that exhale. Then we can reflect, oh, okay, that I was still tense, or that felt pretty nice. So that would be one drill to do, and we would do it in the short top rope fall increment. Make sure that we're exhaling all the way through, not just. The second drill would be with the eyes. Okay, so we're in a climbing stance, and we focus on looking
down,
straight down into the fall zone to make sure that we're directing our attention there. So we don't start the fall like this. We start by looking up and get ready, and then we can take a breath, and then we can look down into the fall zone when we fall.
It's like cats. When cats fall, they look down, and then they rotate to their body, and they just know how to land.
Yes, it's we could look at like people falling in other sports, martial arts or soccer or whatever. It's like the eyes are automatically the body's going to orient and go, and the eyes go in the direction of responding to the fall the most effective way. So in the falling practice, climbers tend to just look here.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of influence the practice process a little bit and say, no, eyes here, intentionally, make sure you're looking up. But then when you let go, boom, eyes go down to the ground. And important to make sure you're looking and seeing things in the fall zone. Otherwise, attention might stay up here, being afraid of doing the fall or something.
Yeah.
So a drill would be to practice that, the eye shift. And then the body positioning, of course. actually the eyes help orient your body positioning, right?
Yeah.
And your body positioning, a couple of things come to mind there. One is we can tend to like kind of jump off, which is not realistic when we fall unexpectedly when we're climbing. So to practice, instead of jumping off, just to sit back and down into like a chair, an imaginary chair, so that you're moving from your core, from your center, from your hips, right? So you're just like you sit back and down into a chair, you're sitting back and down, moving a little bit away from the wall. Your upper body comes forward a little bit. The head and eyes go down automatically. You know, so we can do these three drills. They work together. The three incremental drills, and then the three drills of breathing, eyes, and body that you're actually focusing on this, the quality of how you're doing
the fall.
Of the fall, yeah.
Did it take long for you to learn how to fall? Or you didn't learn how to fall in the beginning?
Well, you know, when I first started climbing, Christina, it was like 1973, and there was like 10 years before sport climbing, and falling was not really, you know, climbers did fall, but it was sort of frowned upon, like, oh, you're going to hurt yourself, and justifiably so. You know, the climbing was more on slab. The protection wasn't as secure as we have now. But for some reason, I was like falling a lot. I think largely because I was...
Of your ego?
No, not really. I grew up here in the southeast of the US, and there were not any climbers around. And there were not any climbs to go and climb that had been established. So my friends and I, we would just go and look for new crags to climb. And so a lot of times we got into situations that, you know, we fell because it was too hard. So falling has kind of been a part of my process in climbing since the beginning. But learning how to fall well, that didn't really happen until I started in the mid-1990s, started studying this and investigating it.
So you practiced after that?
Yes. Practice properly.
Properly, yes, yes, not only experience. Going back to warriors, what are 3 rules of conduct for a warrior?
3 rules of conduct in order to, you might say, be a warrior in how we're engaging stress.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and these I think would work together. I think the first one would be identify what is the task that you need to focus on. Just like we talked about, you know, you have tasks of thinking for the risk, you have tasks of resting, you have tasks for climbing. Identify the task. The second rule would be know exactly what to focus on to do that task well. You know, like with the climbing, it would be breathing, moving, relaxing, and maintaining eye contact on holds. So identify the task, number 1. Number 2 would be know exactly what to focus on. And number 3 would be redirect attention when it gets distracted.
Okay. And then go back to number 1.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's if we can get better at those 3 things, we're going to improve our mental fitness a lot.
Your organization is named Desiderata Institute. So what is your desiderate?
Yeah, something I've would strive for and hope for and desire.
Yeah. In your work?
Well, that gets to the core of the mission, right? That's
yeah.
Like, why am I doing what I'm doing, right? And really, you know, I think we all want our lives to matter, you know, that we're doing meaningful work. And I think that my desire for this business is that it can help people to think differently, to use their attention differently, so that we can actually solve some of the really major problems that we have in our world. You know, I think it can, you know, so that's what I'm working toward. And my desire, you might say, is I want Warrior's Way to be something that can help people to think differently in their own lives, but also how they interact with the communities and the world at large.
So it's not about only having a good climber's life, but have a mark on other ways of life.
Yes, and actually, my intention from the very beginning of starting this business was to go beyond just climbing to regular people, and I've been working in that direction already, but right now I'm working on a new book, you know, for the general public, people, not just climbing. I'm really excited about it, making some progress, and I think it's going to be really helpful for our mission and for my desire, like you were asking.
And when do you expect it to be ready, your book?
We've set a deadline for the end of 2021. So it might be sooner, but I'm not sure. So far, I'm about halfway through the first draft. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. Well, how long did it take to write the first book, Rock Warrior's Way?
2 years.
2 years. Well, it's kind of
the second
same,
book,
huh?
Yeah, the second book also about 2 years. But that's like from the beginning of the idea to having a book in my hand.
A paper, yeah. Okay.
But my previous books, I self-published, you know, myself. On this new one, I'm going to work with a publisher. So, you know, it might be faster,
easier,
but
maybe.
I don't think it will be longer than that, because it's really interesting, because this pandemic, you know, coronavirus thing that we have going on right now, it's actually really helped me focus on writing, because it's caused me not to be able to travel and teach in person and all of that. And it's given me time to write. So
that would be the positive aspect of COVID,
I guess. Yeah. And I mean, you know, things happen in our lives, you know, like COVID, and what are we left with other than just like, well, what can I do now? And so.
And who will the publisher be? Publisher be?
I don't know yet. I'm still researching to find out a publisher that may be interested. Yeah, I'm not sure yet.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Arno, I thank you very much for the time you took for this discussion.
You're welcome. Very, very nice to do it.
I hope that we will hear, I'm sure we will hear lots of interesting things from you with your book, and maybe we see you in Romania again. I know that you've been here 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to come back. And I think one thing that's important to remember is that we don't do things alone. You know, like in my business, we have a network of trainers, you know, and even what we're doing, like you and I, you know, we're working together to do something more than what either of us can do separately.
Yes.
And so when this book comes out, it's going to be a lot of collaboration like that also between people and organizations for it to be helpful for people. So thanks for inviting me to be here.
You're welcome, and good luck with everything you do.
Thank you. And we're in contact.
Yes. Goodbye, Arno.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And I'll stop the recording now, okay?